All right, good evening, everyone. I am the Mad Computer Scientist, and we're just going to start with a few checks like we normally do. You can freely skip ahead a couple minutes if these do not interest you. All right, that is the first check we can see, and we can also see I need to switch over to headphones. All right, we've got that done. Just make sure that went through. And now we need to make sure that we are able to hear the video that we're going to share, so give me a second to do that. All right, I think there we are. Give me a second, and we'll start the sound on the Morg video, and then we will see if we can hear him. All right, there we go. All right, it sounds like there is an issue with the sound on the Morg video, though. So we'll bring the sound up just so I hope you guys can hear it. And now let us go into our introduction spiel. I am the Mad Computer Scientist. On this channel, I usually like to discuss math, computer science, and technology topics that are of interest to me. On Fridays, however, we usually do something a little different. And on this particular snowy Friday, there's not much I can do outside because the roads are very messy. We got hit by 2 snowstorms fairly close in a row here, and I only worked 3 days this week. So tonight we're going to go through Morg, who's commenting on Billy Carson. Now, I feel like I've commented on Billy Carson enough, and I'm not really interested in what Billy Carson has to say. After all, Billy Carson is just a grifter who gets enough coverage already. Morg, however, is a bit of a different story. As far as I can tell, he's a cult leader or a movement leader. I'm not sure where he falls into that. He's actually somewhat more educated than Billy Carson, and of course he's better at math and science than both of them, but he's still very much in the pseudoscience camp. But before we get into the video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you subscribe, be sure to ring that notification bell so you will always receive the latest updates. Also, be sure to leave a comment, and if you find this content useful, make sure to share it out with your friends. Welcome to Faulty Logic Fridays. And now let's get into the video. I have not watched this video, so I do not know what Morg is going to say. I will, however, avoid commenting on what Billy Carson has to say because there's just no more to say. And that reminds me, I actually do have to change the title, so give me a sec. Terrence Howard is not involved in this one. And I don't know why I thought he was. So let's just change the title, which will not show up later, but that way we won't confuse people. Is that because you're getting tired of people not listening to your insanity? No, you take a New Age approach. Please do not lie to your audience or mine. Speaking of making sure this video doesn't take too long, let's speed up Morg speaking, because he is going on for over an hour, which I assume is probably because it's a response video. Give me a second and we will just increase the playback speed to 1 1/4, just so we're not here all night. No, you're a grifter on YouTube. That's hardly something to commend you, Billy. After all, the workers do honest hard work. You just talk on the internet. I think this is the first time where Morg isn't talking about some part of math that's non-controversial, where I actually agree with him. Apparently, Morg is against prosperity gospel too. Oh, believe me, you miss nothing by being an expert on Billy Carson. There may be things I agree with what he says, but from what I can tell, none of his ideas are good. Most of his ideas aren't even his, Morg. I'd like to point out to everyone right now that Morg has said that Euler's identity proves reincarnation. Morg, you're going to ruin this if you're going to be reasonable. I was expecting the New Age garbage I normally get from you. Hello, Remains. For heavens. Okay, I need to let him finish, but I know where he's going. All right, the problem here is, Morg, a lot of the people who make this type of claim don't really have anything scientific. I can claim that I have used Terence Howard's work to prove P equals NP. But no computer scientist is going to take me seriously because the guy can't do basic math. Usually, the people who make this claim aren't that extreme. But usually, the other people who have studied the field and might work with people like Eric Weinstein if Eric Weinstein weren't just flat out wrong, study the field just as deeply, and they continue to study it even after they earn their degrees. The problem is there's just nothing useful that can come from Eric Weinstein's theory of everything. Otherwise, physicists would be using it. Now, it's also true that nothing yet has come from string theory, and we don't know if it will. But the fact is, I don't understand string theory because I'm not a physicist. I have to use heuristics to make sure other people who do understand it can explain it to me as a layman. And for those of you who just joined us watching the Discount Sephiroth here, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Well, if you can prove it, that's worth some money, I think, but I have a hard time understanding the Riemann hypothesis, so I don't think... Is it Into Infinity who's saying he's proved the Riemann hypothesis? But Billy Carson most certainly hasn't, because he thinks the Egyptians had Turing machines. I would not know about Morg at all if Mortimer 81 had never covered him. And if you've ever seen Mortimer 81, you might be unsurprised to know that Mortimer 81 was not impressed with Morg. So good, now we can all agree that transgender people have done their necessary transformation, and everyone should look up to them. Okay, Morg, but having a jet is objectively cool. But yes, most of us don't care that Billy Carson has one. Um, the irony here is that Billy Carson's grift doesn't work on people who have an education, which poor people can get an education, but it's kind of harder for them to do so because the system is rigged against them, which anyone who has taken a sociology course would know that. Is that because your grift relies on ignorant people with a little more education dealing with you, Morg? Is anyone else having problems? I had problems looking at that earlier, and I thought I fixed it, but apparently I did not. So give me a second. I think I can fix it by doing something else. All right. I think it might be just doing different browsers. So we're going to try to reshare the video, and then we're going to start from where we were. All right. Give me a second here. All we have to do is... That's the wrong thing on my end. All right. Also share the audio. Full screen it. That's theater mode. And let me know if this is better.
No, I'm not saying like, oh, we should all go sell everything and live in.
All right, let me see what's on the other end, just so I can hear him. All right, sounds like it's better.
Huts in the wilderness or something. If you want to do that, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with having nice things. There's nothing wrong with, making money and being successful and having a nice life. That's fine. But if you're just going around, especially after you lost a debate, just talking about your movie theater and all.
Morg, debates on the internet aren't really won or lost. Debates on the internet, and I think this took place on Joe Rogan's show, are essentially a genitalia measuring contest. Now, the reason Billy Carson didn't do very well in that exchange is because while he is very confident about what he says, he doesn't have the competency necessary to know he's wrong. In fact, a lot of what he does relies on convincing other people that he knows enough and that he's right because they don't know enough to know that he's wrong. Much like what you do, Morg.
All the ACs that you have, and it's a very not a good taste to be like, oh well, look how much money I make and how little money you make, so I'm clearly better than you. That's not good.
I'm not a Joe Schmo 9-to-5 worker bee. You thought I was just some dumb black guy that just happened to get a little lucky with a couple of clips online and gain some popularity. Like Kendrick Lamar say, they not like us.
Now the thing is that Billy clearly knows how to make money. Like he clearly knows how to make money. It's not.
But one thing neither of you know how to do, as far as I can tell, is how to make money without taking advantage of people.
Like he just got lucky. He's absolutely right in that fact. He didn't just get lucky. He didn't just post a couple videos. Oh, got viral and he got super lucky. I mean, I don't know much about him, but based on what I've seen of him, he knows how to create something that people will want to engage with. He's very smart when it comes.
Yes, just tell people what they hear. It's what you do, Morg. You're doing the exact same thing and you don't even see it.
Comes to that. But equating that with the value or worth of a person is not, if because this is all about supposed to be about higher consciousness, right? I mean, I don't know. I would assume, I would think. So it doesn't make sense to bring that in this context. It's kind of like...
Well, no, I'm sure you want everyone to forgive you for killing Eris in Final Fantasy VII, but no, it's not about higher consciousness for you, Morg. That's what you want the people who follow you to think. What it's about for you is giving you a comfortable life, just like it is for Billy here.
Like if you were in let's say you were a crypto trader or something. I don't know. If you were a crypto trader,
I notice you're going to another grift. That's interesting.
Then yeah, it would make sense to be like, oh, look, I'm better because I make more money. Because the whole thing is about how much money you can make. When it comes to what should be about actualizing your higher self and helping others to do the same, to bring in this idea of, oh, I make more money, so I'm better, is very antithetical to the entire pursuit.
They not like us.
Now, first off, you can't quote Kendrick while you're acting like Drake. And secondly, now this earlier comment suddenly makes more sense. But if obliviously mocking his fans wasn't bad enough, Billy took things to another level when he admitted this.
The money that you thought you were making and the popularity you thought you were making is all going to be spent on attorney's fees. And I don't care if I win or lose. I just want you to spend money.
Horrible. That's horrible. So he's already talking about how he's going to sue all these people. And that he's just basically like flexing, like, oh, I don't even care if I've got so much money, I can hire all these lawyers. Doesn't matter. I just want you to spend money. Doesn't matter if I win or lose. I just want you to spend money. Yeah, this is clearly very problematic.
Now, if you aren't aware, what he just admitted to was filing what's called slap lawsuits, which are designed to silence critics and burden the defendant with legal costs until they...
I don't know if it was just the audio on my end or if What Do You Mean mispronounced that, but it's a slap lawsuit, not a slop lawsuit.
abandon their criticism. And he even went so far as to say that he's going to sue the host of the podcast for
$1 million and possibly even more.
Now, not
He's going to sue Joe Rogan for $1 million. I think Joe Rogan would laugh at him, but I also think Joe Rogan has made enough money to employ lawyers to keep you busy. Is the whole point of filing this lawsuit just to keep the lawyers busy until one side gives up? I don't know.
not only does admitting this ruin the little bit of chances that he had at winning the lawsuit, but it also opens him up to counter lawsuits. And
Yeah, so we're going to talk about this. So we're going to take a look at Wes's response to Billy's legal documents.
unsurprisingly, fans and critics alike saw this as a massive overreaction to a debate being published. But as we'll see next, Billy's
My cat says hi to everyone. Say hi to Athena.
excuses and evidence for his debate performance didn't just fail to clear his name, they made things far worse, with some even calling him a fraud. And speaking of fraud, before we get into that, did you know that American homeowners nationwide have over $32 trillion in equity? And cyber
No.
title of your the demonstration on how to lock down. So we left off
I'm glad our discount Sephiroth has learned to take out his frustration by skipping ads instead of killing the flower girl. And yes, I'm going to be making Final Fantasy VII references throughout this stream tonight.
with some people considering Billy to be a fraud. This all stemmed from his poor performance in a recent debate, which anyone that was familiar with Wes and Billy's work knew exactly how it was going to go.
Billy Carson.
So this is where I want to say again, I'm not super familiar with Billy Carson's work. I've seen little bits and pieces about the information that he conveys. So this idea of whether Billy Carson is a fraud or not really relies on if he actually believes the things that he's saying, because he absolutely 100% says things that are not true. He talks about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth as if they were 36,000-year-old texts. And I even think sometimes he's like, oh, the Bible copied the Emerald Tablets. The Emerald Tablets are...
Yes, he also thinks the Bible was written in Arabic, which it was not.
less than 100 years old. Now, don't confuse that with the Emerald Tablets of Hermes. That's Emerald Tablet of Hermes is something completely different. I see that confusion a lot, something completely different. That's a legit ancient document. It wasn't written by Hermes, but it's 12 to 1300 years old. But that's not what Billy talks about. So he does say things that are very problematic.
Oh, that dude sat down with Wes Huff. Bro, it was a slaughter.
Yeah, and given the fact that they were right, Billy tried to excuse his performance with some, let's just call them questionable arguments. The first explanation he gave was that he was incredibly sick, claiming that he nearly died of pneumonia days before the debate. And he showed proof of this by showing this Band-Aid on his arm.
And being in
Now, I will say, to be fair, he did.
Well, if I had more time to screen this video, I probably would have chose a different one, but it's been a somewhat hectic week.
Look very sick. I mean, he looked real out of it. I'm not
And I finally got that bubble sort video I wanted to do out.
familiar with Bill. Well, just from watching this, he wasn't acting like this. He seemed pretty out of it. But I mean, that's kind of on you, you know, if you're gonna go into something not feeling good, you know, that sucks, but you know what you're getting into.
And certainly, none of us have ever made excuses about our poor performance afterwards, especially if we were overconfident.
if he released a video which is like, hey, you know what, guys, I wasn't feeling good. I know that debate sucked. Let's do another one. Let's do another one when I'm feeling better, or something. Like, that would be totally fine. So I think it's legit to say, oh, I wasn't feeling good, but the way you handle that is what matters. And he did not handle it very well. When it just looks like you're, oh, I was sick and I make more money than you, and you're just poor, and I have so many air conditioners. It's yeah. And remember, this is all my opinion, based on.
Wait, you mean it's your opinion? That this isn't fact? I thought YouTube was only required to have facts on it.
On like a lot of little clips here and there, these videos that I've seen. So
I have seen a lot of Billy Carson's material, and no, he's not on it. What he is confident in what he's speaking about. There's a difference between confidence and competence, and this is why he did not do well in this debate.
Take it all with a grain of salt. Do your own research if you want. I'm not. Yeah, anyway.
In that weakened state, which he knew he caught me in one of my most weakest states. He saw how I only weighed 206 pounds. And again, I was so...
Wait, what? How does what you weigh have any bearing on how well you do in a debate? I don't understand that logic at all.
Sick and ill, to be quite honest with you. Maybe.
So we have our first logical fallacy of the night, the non sequitur, and I really need to pay more attention to Morg.
Yeah, I did bumble my words a couple times with the sign.
Did he say he only weighed 206 pounds? What did he say?
He caught me in one of my most weakest states. He saw how I only weighed 206 pounds.
I only weighed 206 pounds? Am I crazy, or is that's a lot of pounds? That's a high number, no?
No, Morg, that depends on your body frame and your muscular build. It probably isn't good for most people to be 206 pounds, but I don't even know what this line of reasoning has to do with his debate performance to begin with.
I weigh 153.
I don't care about your weight either.
That's kind of a lot, isn't it? I mean, unless he's like 7 feet tall or something. Did he mean to say 106? He couldn't have meant to say 100. He would look like skin and bones if he was 106. Anyway, well, he's 6'4" and usually weighs 260. Someone in the chat said that. He's 6'4". Anyway, I mean, he looks fit. 206 does not seem like a low number to me, but I don't know anything about his whatever, it doesn't matter.
And again, I was so sick and ill, to be quite honest with you. Maybe I did bumble my words a couple times with the Sinai Bible or the Barnabas text. It's quite powerful. I thought we were having a casual conversation on spirituality, and I wasn't really even fully in my right mind. I'm just almost...
Okay, we're not focusing on Billy tonight.
Almost died a few days before going to his house, literally. And so he took advantage of that.
Now, to be clear, I don't have any.
So T-Chem says, hey, Morg, Billy said ridiculous, embarrassing, egocentric things, but these clips conveniently left out some critical parts of the story. This creator is clearly biased. Can you give some examples of critical things left out?
Yes, what do you mean is fairly biased? He's a Christian creator.
Because I would be interested to know. From what I understand, the things that Billy is trying to say is that he wasn't feeling good. He had pneumonia. He didn't know that it was going to be a debate. And as far as I know, those are only the real legit, like something that could be legit that he said regarding it. But again, that doesn't justify.
If he had pneumonia, why did he do the debate in the first place? I've had pneumonia. It saps your energy. You don't feel like doing much of anything until you get those lungs cleared up again.
At all, this response. Like I said, if he was just like, oh, hey, guys, I wasn't feeling good. I didn't know that it was going to be like this. Let's do another video. I'm sure Wes would totally be down for that. The way that it was handled is very problematic. Yeah, Mark. Hey, Mark, how are you? Mark says, regardless of how much anyone likes Billy, the flexing has no bearing on the merit of the arguments. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Strong reason to doubt that he was sick and was actually in the hospital days before the debate. And by the way, I'm glad that he didn't die and he's better now. But if this illness really did cause him to get things wrong, then what's his excuse for saying the exact same things on podcasts before the debate?
Never got crucified. As a matter of fact, this
I think this is just the first time he's been called out by someone with a great deal of knowledge about a given subject area, and he's having a hard time dealing with it. He's used to dealing with people who don't have a lot of education. In fact, I would probably, if I didn't know Billy Carson was a grifter who says other things that are questionable, take him at his word for what he says about the Bible because he presents himself confidently. This is also how people like Kent Hovind have maintained a following over the years. They don't necessarily know the topic, they just can speak with confidence because they're good public speakers.
Sinai Bible, Jesus was crucified.
Well, that doesn't exist in the Sinai Bible. The Sinai Bible. The Sinai Bible. But then you go to the Sinai Bible. In the Sinai Bible and the Sinai Bible.
See, that's the problem, right? If you're talking about a certain text, and I think he means the Gospel of Barnabas, right? Not the Sinai Bible. Yeah, it's the Gospel of Barnabas. I think that's the whole point here. It's the Gospel of Barnabas. These are clearly not historically accurate documents. But he acts as though that they are, and that's the problem. So like I said before, when I read from the Gospel...
Morg, ancient histories have varying degrees of historical accuracy, but one thing historians will do is consider how reliable the source is, as well as understand that ancient people used histories differently. For example, a lot of Roman histories were used for moral instruction. And if you've ever read Livy, you know right at the beginning of it, because there was a fire that destroyed some of Rome's records, Livy will tell you that he's not reporting actual history, but just stories people have passed down over the centuries.
Of Judas or the Gospel of Mary. I know they weren't written by the Gospel of Judas. I know they weren't written by Judas. I know they weren't written by Mary.
Most of the Gospels, even the ones we accept as canon in Christianity, probably weren't written by the authors that are given credit.
I say that, but it's about understanding the power that these archetypal symbols have. Like Lilith. Lilith is an amazing archetypal figure, one of my favorites. She's not in the Bible. She's in a medieval text called the Alphabet of Ben Sira and is a legend. But I'm not trying to say that like Lilith really existed. No, Lilith is a symbol for rebellion, knowledge, and the divine feminine, especially when facing oppression and to oppose that oppression. That's what that represents. The problem is that people take these representations, these symbols and images as though that they were real things. They're not. They are representations of forces that exist in the psyche.
According to the Sinai Bible, Jesus wasn't crucified in that Bible.
And how was he able on the night of the...
And Jesus wasn't crucified in the Quran either. I don't know what that has to do with anything.
debate to go to the host's house at 2:30 in the morning while the host's wife and kids were sleeping. And immediately after the host didn't answer, he had enough energy to do this.
I come back to the house. I'm extremely angry now, extremely frustrated.
Okay. Not focusing on Billy Carson. Try not to.
I wasn't able to contact him. His phone was in like do not disturb mode. So I tried to call first. I tried to call him like 4 or 5 times, evidence in my...
I do think there's something weird with the audio going on here. So let me know if anyone else is hearing like a slight echo when Billy Carson is speaking.
My phone records. I texted him 5 or 6 times. I also texted him a copy of my do not consent, and I WhatsApped him a copy of my do not consent form at the same time.
But even worse, he says that he's now...
I'm not the same almost half dead person that you tried to talk to a few weeks ago. I've gotten my clear mind back. My brain fog is gone. My body weight's coming back. I'm lifting and working out every single day. I'm getting stronger by the second. I'm not that weak, sick person that just almost died. That was in the hospital, coming on a show on a video feed with a IV bandage on, literally fresh off the IV.
If all that's true, that's fine, and it could very well be true. It's just the response is bad. Then be like, okay, let's have another. Now that I'm feeling better, let's have another debate.
Sorry, I was muted. Morg, I would suggest you actually watch some of Billy Carson's content to understand why he didn't do well. What he's doing here now is giving us excuses for his poor performance. Why he didn't do well is because he doesn't know the topic. He spoke with someone who has intensely studied these ancient documents. And when the conversation stayed on the ancient documents, Billy Carson was easily refuted by someone who had a lot of knowledge in that area. It's like something that happened to me at work a few days ago where someone was trying to tell me that a black IDE screen was someone hacking, and I could not convince them that it was just JavaScript.
That would be, and there's many other types of responses. That's not the only one. There's many appropriate responses that could have been made. Not, oh, I'm feeling better and I'm healthy now, and look how much money I have. You're all poor. I'm going to sue everybody. Yeah, it's it's an unfortunate thing because Billy clearly has a big reach and a big influence. And I agree with some of what he says about criticizing the Bible and criticizing Christianity. He's on point with that stuff. It's just, this behavior is not good. And what he bases his arguments and information on, from what I have seen, are factually inaccurate. I haven't seen everything that he talks about, but as far as like Barnabas and the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, they're factually inaccurate. If you aren't claiming that they're factually inaccurate, if you're just like, oh, hey, this is an interesting story we can learn from, that's totally different. But that's not what he's saying.
The big tree with all the different IV bags and all the antibiotics and everything else dripping into my body. Fresh off the bag, I'm in the studio, out of boredom really, but brain fog, tired, exhausted, can't breathe. I only got about 2 more weeks of recovery left from this pneumonia, and I'll be full strength.
Now, if that's true, then,
and again, if that is true, I could totally say, look, if I was just, because I'm sure Billy probably has tons of podcasts to do, tons of interviews, tons of podcasts. I don't know much about him, but I would assume. And if he's feeling super sick and he's not doing good and he's out of it, and they're like, oh, hey, you have a podcast at 3 p.m. tomorrow. He's just like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. And he does it, and he goes on, and he's not expecting a debate, and he's not feeling, and it goes bad. If that is true, I don't know if that's true or not. But if it is, yeah, I mean, that sucks. That's too bad. That's unfortunate. But it would be one of those things where, like I said, you'd go, look, I wasn't feeling good. I didn't realize it was going to be like that. I'm feeling better now. Let's get into it.
I think this is one of the few times I've seen Morg where he's not spewing some new age garbage, and he's actually being fairly reasonable.
Why not debate again?
I would like to hear more about why he disagrees with Billy Carson on the Bible, though.
Wes even offered to take the video down if Billy agreed to another debate.
Billy, I will agree to all the terms and conditions of the cease and desist letter if you agree to run it back, sit down with me in person, and have another discussion.
But
now, so he is like I said, Wes seems to be totally open with another debate or another discussion. Now, to be clear, I'm not Team Wes. Yeah, as I did. If you want to see the whole I did a whole reaction to the entire debate. I did 2-hour debate. I did reaction to the whole thing. I'm not on Team Wes. I'm not on Team Carson either. Wes.
Are you on Team Jacob?
To me, sounds very condescending, and I thought his attitude was not good.
Wait, I've seen clips of Wes on Paulogia's channel, and I don't know how you get condescending off of that. If you mean someone who clearly knows more than Billy Carson, like a professional getting annoyed when, I don't know, someone tells them 1 × 1 = 2, perhaps you have yet to be on that side of the conversation.
I don't like criticizing people, so I'm I'm trying to criticize them without sounding like an asshole. I don't usually do like reaction video type things, but
Well, there's a difference between criticizing people gently and pointing out that someone is a grifter, is dishonest, and I can be a lot nastier than I'm being for him.
and just they're not there. Look, I'm an ex-Christian. I don't think that the Christian arguments are very good because they're trying to treat these things as historical events. And this conspiracy angle, I think, is riddled with factual errors.
It seems that Billy doesn't want to take that chance. Billy's second excuse for his poor performance was that he was ambushed. The only problem is he admitted to willingly doing the debate.
And then Mark gets this guy on the live feed, and he says, "Hey, we're gonna have a little debate." I'm like, "A debate?" He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna talk about this, your perspective of religion." And
so Beauty with Tiffy says, you should have seen Wes and his buddies on YouTube bullying him and fear-mongering. I don't doubt that that could be true. Like I said, I think that very often religious behavior, I thought Wes was very condescending.
And if I wanted to bring it up, I could bring up videos I saw that included reports of Morg swatting people in his organization, his followers. But I don't know that that's true.
So I don't know if that's true, but it wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying that I like how Wes handled things.
so on, so on, whatever.
Is that because someone who actually knows what they're talking about could do the same to you, Morg?
And I'm like, huh? I'm like, okay, whatever.
So not only did Billy once again mess up his lawsuit by admitting.
So from that, it sounds like Billy knew it was going to be a debate, right? Let me just play that again. Billy is saying that he knew it was going to be a debate.
The only problem is he admitted to willingly doing the debate.
And then Mark gets this guy on the live feed, and he says, "Hey, we're gonna have a little debate." I'm like, "A debate?"
Billy Carson, I'd love to see you bring any computer scientist from a university on and present your evidence to them that the Egyptians had computers and the pyramids are computers. They're going to demand that a proof from you that the pyramids are Turing complete. Or at least they're capable of manipulating data.
Right? It's like, yeah, we're gonna talk about this, your perspective of religion and stuff and so on, whatever. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, okay, whatever.
So
to be fair, from what look, these are just little clips. To be fair, I don't think Billy is saying, I knew way ahead of time it was going to be a debate. I think he's saying like right before they went live, the host was like, hey, this is the debate. He's like, what? Oh, okay, whatever. I don't know if any of that's true. I could see that being true. Like I said, I could see Billy being super.
From what I know of Billy Carson and of you, Morg, you might be a little nicer after something like this, but I'm guessing it's not true.
Sick, not really knowing it's a debate. I could see all that being true. It's how he handled it. That's the issue. Prometheus says, Morg, I've been internally hoping for a debate between you and Billy, but now it looks like that has evaporated along with Billy's weight. Oh, well, I mean, I don't know if I'd want to, I don't know.
Well, maybe if you stopped carrying around that large sword in your left hand, people would be more willing to debate with you. And yes, that's another Final Fantasy VII reference.
All this stuff is very silly, in my opinion. I mean, it's fun to think about some of this stuff, but if the goal is really like to reach higher consciousness, if anyone look, I don't like debates. If people want to have discussions, I'm totally down for that. I usually like to find commonalities. Like if I were to sit down with Wes, I'd be like, okay, what are some things that we can agree with, and how can we perhaps create a conversation that is intellectually stimulating? I know that that's not drama, not what people like. Anyway.
So not only did Billy once again mess up his lawsuit by admitting this, but anyone who watched the debate could see that it clearly was not an ambush. It was one-on-one, with the moderator even siding with Billy at times. His third excuse for a bad debate performance was that Mark and Wes conspired to mess up the feed whenever he had something important to say.
And then what they did was...
Again, I'm sorry, this audio problem has to be on Morg's end.
They're pretty slick. So every time I had something really important...
Or it's with my headphones, I'm not sure which.
...important to say, or a deep question to ask, defendant number 2 video would just magically disconnect. Boop, he's off again. Oh man, he's off again. I don't know what happened.
Okay. So again, to be fair, it did seem like towards the end, when Billy started talking, Wes was having connection difficulties and his camera was going out, and he'd come back on and be like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that," or I didn't hear that. So that did happen. I don't think it was planned. That seems like a very big stretch. It did. Okay, because here's the thing. Wes is a smart guy. He's a smart guy in that he knows he knows a lot of things. He has a lot of data that he has collected, and he's well studied. So I don't think Wes would have to like pretend that his camera wasn't working or something. I think that's pretty silly. I don't go.
On the other hand, if you have a well-rehearsed script, Morg, like you do, and you're confronted by an expert who can call you out on what you're saying, and I'm not enough of an expert on the stuff you talk about, Morg, to do that, you may actually feign some of those computer problems. I personally don't believe that Billy Carson did this deliberately either, simply because this type of problems are common. And it's not outrageous that he might have been having an internet issue due to his ISP or some problems in the area by the end of that debate.
Watch the reaction video. I don't think that was intentional.
First time it happened, I was like, that's strange, because it didn't happen when he was talking, and his video was very clear and crisp.
However, leading into conspiratorial territory is taking it a little bit too far. It's like Terrence Howard saying they're turning his phone off when all he needs to do is just either get a normal calculator which doesn't connect to the internet, or, and this is more likely, change the time out delay on his screen before it goes to black.
Like almost 4K.
But this doesn't really add up. The footage only shows Wes's internet freezing, and no one can even manipulate a live feed like that. This excuse only works for people who haven't watched the full unedited footage of the debate, which you can find on Wes's.
Wait, are you sure no one can manipulate a live feed like that? What do you mean? Because I am not sure. But I'm not absolutely certain either.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you could. I think you could. You could manipulate that if you wanted to. I'm just this guy here said you couldn't do that. But you could. I mean, it's not that you just turn your camera off or something, or just. But I don't think that he did.
I think he was referring to the stream freezing, which more than likely is just a network latency issue on Wes's end. But it is possible to cause latency issues, aka lag, deliberately.
If you watch the whole thing, it does not seem intentional. I think that's a pretty big stretch.
Channel, and there's also a link down below. His next excuse was that no one let him talk.
I might have bumbled the Barnabas text for the.
And from what I've seen of Billy, he never shuts up. So I find this one hard to believe.
Cyanide text or whatever. It doesn't really matter. What matters is I never got a chance to answer any questions or get my voice heard.
So Wes and the moderator did kind of dominate the conversation, but Billy could have spoken up at any time, and there were sections where he did talk for quite a bit, but Billy could have interjected. However, if he was sick, yeah, you're probably not going to feel like that. You're probably just like, okay, what did you say? Okay, but I could, if I was sick, I probably would have had like a very similar way of acting. Like, I mean, not exactly like Billy, but in terms of like being out of it. He did seem out of it. But I'll always go back to that's no excuse for the behavior after this. You don't go, kind of whine about all this and be like, hey, I lost and I wasn't feeling well and I didn't know it was a debate and all you guys are poor.
So basically all this comes down to is you're trying to comment on Billy being a poor loser. Okay, yes, some people are just poor losers, Morg. I have been a poor loser in the past. I'm not proud of it. This is why I tend to avoid competitive events.
I make so much money, and I'm the best. And your camera wasn't working. You cheated. I mean, just do another one then. If you're really super confident in what you have to say, and you are saying that you could have done better, then do it again.
Or hear me out on this one, Morg. He's actually used to spewing a script. Now, I'm going to go back to this example. Watch Kent Hovind and the very old debate where he goes up against Aaron Ra. This is the first time Kent Hovind was really challenged on his script by someone who knew a lot more than he did. And Kent Hovind did not respond well to it.
Or not, and just be like, you know what, that sucked. I'm not going to do that again, but don't make a weird, I don't know, weird. It's weird.
That's what really matters. But now I'm trying to ask my question. I'm getting overridden with other texts, other words from defendant number one. He's overriding what I'm trying to say, everything I've got to ask. He's talking over me. I'm the person that's...
No, from what I can tell, and someone who watched the full debate can correct me, he was not talking over you. He was correcting you.
They're supposed to be in this debate. I can't even get a word in.
Now, you know what Billy could have done with it? So this is a 3-hour video, okay? So I want to say I didn't watch the whole 3. I tried, and it was just ranty, like, oh, my air conditioning, oh, my...
All right, and let's take a second out from this particular weird video to remind everyone to like, comment, and subscribe.
Chefs, all the random stuff. What he could have done is he could have said, look, I'm going to break down everything that Wes said and respond to how, like, well, I wasn't feeling that well that day. So here's my real response. Like, instead of whining about it, he could have tried to address the things that Wes said on this video. Like, instead of going, oh, I wasn't feeling good. Well, then tell us how you would have responded to it. Like, that would have been fine, I think. Don't do it in like a mean, aggressive way. But if you just explain, look, I wasn't feeling good. So when Wes said this is how I actually feel about that particular piece of information that Wes said. But he's not doing that at all. Maybe he did. I didn't watch the whole 3 hours, but I kind of doubt it. But anyway.
And as soon as I say one thing, the other guy, defendant number 2, he's overriding and talking over me. I'm just sitting there patiently, just quiet. So I saw Dan at that moment. I realized, oh, this is a contrived setup video to make me look like I'm some type of dummy and I don't know what I'm talking about. So they can go bragging to all their Christian buddies and friends in their cult and, oh, he didn't know the answer to these 2 questions. Not really.
Now, I will say they didn't treat him very well in the aftermath. But now that he did this, you can't really say much about it because this is a dick move.
But anyone who's seen the debate knows that this just isn't true. He had plenty of time to speak. Important times for him to make his case. He still only managed responses like these.
Referring to the Gospel of Barnabas as anything other than...
If you say it's an unfortunate expert, I'm going to go with that. Let's talk about the Old Testament a little bit. That's fair enough. I can respect that. So let's go into the Old Testament a little bit.
And even in my last video of him, I have a clip of him talking for...
See, a couple things that I liked about before I saw all this response is that when Billy admitted to making mistakes a couple times, he'd be like, okay, I agree with that, or yeah, my bad, or whatever. Wes actually made a mistake a couple times, and he didn't say nothing about it. He made a mistake with regard to the contents of the Book of Enoch, and I believe slavery being in the New Testament, but he didn't address...
Wait, you're trying to tell me slavery isn't in the New Testament, Morg? It absolutely is. Are you going to clarify that point?
He wasn't like, oh yeah, my bad, it actually is, or oh my bad, yeah, that is in the Book of Enoch. But this response...
Oh, are you saying Wes said it wasn't in the New Testament?
That Billy has done has completely thrown all that out of the water. It didn't have to be this bad. Billy could have made this much better by having an appropriate response to it.
For almost 4 minutes straight, uninterrupted. And finally, Billy implied that AI or deepfake technology was used to manipulate the footage.
This is a video of me speaking in Korean. 안녕하세요, 여러분. 저는
Yes, this can be done, but this just sounds more sour grapes to me than actual anything that there's evidence for.
빌리 카슨입니다. 포비든 노랫개로도 알려. Very easy to do, especially when you're editing.
But
Wait, what? Wait, hold on. Someone said T. Kemp says the moderator is his neighbor, went to his wedding, and the editor has been to his home for events. He talks about their history. They're all supposed to be friends. Well, yeah, I mean, that just makes it worse, doesn't it? The moderator didn't seem malicious to me at all. So wait, what's he talking about? Deepfakes? What does that have to do with it? He's not. What does the deepfakes have to do with it?
Okay, Morg, let me help you out with this one. He's saying the deepfakes were used to make him look bad, and he actually did well.
Any of this?
this just isn't true. He had plenty of time to
Frank the ultimate a little.
노랫개's a video of me speaking in Korean. 안녕하세요, 여러분. 저는 빌리 카슨입니다. 포비든 노랫개로도 알려. Very easy to do, especially when you're editing.
But that was a deep fake that Billy made. There's literally no evidence to suggest that anyone besides Billy created a deep fake of Billy. And even worse, Billy tried to obtain the footage the same night, long before he could have ever known about any supposed manipulation. So now that you've heard these excuses, you can...
Is he really? That's where I want to go and look at this in context. Is Billy really suggesting that that was deep faked in some way? Come on.
What I think is happening here, Morg, is that Billy is so angry he wasn't thinking clearly, went on the internet, posted his rant, and then was surprised at the backlash he got. This is why, I think I've even heard you say this in the past, it's a good idea to not do things like that when you're angry and wait until you can think more clearly.
You can ask yourself, if Billy truly believed these excuses, you would think that he would take the chance to prove everyone wrong now that he's recovered, right?
Yes. See, that great point by this individual. I don't know their name, but great point. Yes, if everything as Billy was saying was true, he would take the time to actually have a rebuttal and to prove what he's saying by, instead of talking about how much he knows, talk about what he knows and the responses he would have had if he was feeling better.
Right? Well, unfortunately.
Well, Morg, unlike you, who I can tell actually does have some knowledge, Billy doesn't seem to have any knowledge other than what's in Zachariah Sitchin's work.
After excusing his debate performance, he attempted to justify his
Oh, and let me not forget, he's also ripping off Ben Van Kerkwyk.
claims with new evidence. And here's where things got even worse.
Okay,
so about an hour into the stream, he finally started to address the claims that he made in the debate for why he believed.
Okay, so maybe he does. Like I said, I haven't seen. Let's see. What do you say?
That Jesus wasn't crucified. And if you recall, the first piece of evidence was that the Sinai Bible didn't mention that Jesus was crucified. But when West literally pulled the text off of his shelf to show Billy otherwise, Billy backtracked, claiming that he'd misspoken and was referring to the Gospel of Barnabas.
Yeah, he said the Sinai Bible. He meant the Gospel of Barnabas. And the Gospel of Barnabas is basically like a Muslim-inspired text. It's not even that old. I think it's medieval, which doesn't. If you were to say, like Lilith is a medieval text, but I'm not saying that Lilith was real and actually existed. You see the difference? Billy is saying, from what I understand, Jesus.
But we will see her in the next season of Has Been Hotel.
Was never actually crucified because of this book. Well, that's completely different then. If you're saying this is a historically accurate thing, then yeah, you're going to want to be like, well, there's problems with this text then. I'm not saying that Lilith was actually, Adam and Eve and Lilith, they're all it's all, it's like arguing about hobbits and Jedi. These are stories that we can learn from, and they're very interesting.
But what about Jedi hobbits? And what about soldiers with PTSD that threaten your plans to take over the world? Sorry, destroy the world. It's been a while since I played Final Fantasy VII.
Very cool and reflect very deep-seated archetypal patterns and can be very powerful when understood and integrated into the psyche. It's a story. It's a symbol. It's like if you have an app on your phone And let's say it's a recipe app. This app shows you your recipes. And the symbol on the app is a carrot. Well, that's not a real carrot. If you try to eat that carrot, you're going to look like an idiot. It's a symbol, it's a representation for a structured system.
So basically what Morg is saying is an abstraction. Yes, language is an abstraction. Get on with it, Morg.
So like Lilith isn't
Symbols are abstractions too.
real in the sense of how she's described in the alphabet of Ben Sirach, just like the carrot isn't a real carrot, but they are powerful symbolic representations for real forces or real structures. The force of rebellion, the force of opposing oppression, the forces of liberation, the forces of the divine feminine, etc. So
the forces of having fabulous hair.
These are very powerful forces, but whether you're talking about stories in the Bible or you're talking about, we talk about tarot cards and how you can tap into archetypal forces by understanding tarot cards. Now, clearly all the lovers cards.
Morg, I suspect you would benefit from a couple of lessons in probability so you understand that what you're saying doesn't really work the way you think it does.
On the tarot aren't actually two real people that really existed.
Okay, my bad. He's talking about the symbolism of tarot, so ignore what I just said.
But they represent an aspect of existence that we can learn from and integrate. Particularly with the Lover's card, we can use to understand the integration of our internal opposites or masculine and feminine forces. If we want to talk in terms of gender, we don't have to. It's about integration. And that's what the Gospel of Thomas would talk about in terms of the ritual of the bridal chamber. And that's what also is represented by Jesus Christ kissing.
Well, I know integration is important, but there's also a derivation of tarot cards that we use every day when we play card games.
Mary. See, I talk about the Gospel of Philip where Jesus Christ kissed Mary, and I say that is a symbol for the unification of opposites together. I don't go, oh, Jesus actually kissed Mary. I don't know if he did. Probably not. Maybe he did. If he did, cool. That's great. But it's completely different perspectives here.
And that made it all the more strange to see during his live stream him try to.
I just realized the speed has been on 1 this entire time, which it wasn't on the original video. So let's speed this up.
To justify his original claim about the Sinai Bible.
Or that in the Sinai Bible, it appeared that Jesus had never been crucified. I said it's quite possible that Jesus was never crucified. Not once anywhere to say Jesus was never crucified. It says quite possible that Jesus was never crucified, or he might not have been crucified, depending on what podcast I was on.
So not once, not anywhere did he.
Wait, did he just admit to saying 2 different things depending on what podcast he was on? And he's surprised he got called out on it?
He ever say that Jesus was never crucified, right? Well, out of Billy's own mouth.
Never got crucified. Jesus was crucified. Well, that doesn't exist in the Sinai Bible. According to the Sinai Bible, Jesus wasn't crucified in that Bible.
And again, what makes it so strange is that if he really did misspeak during the debate by referring to the Sinai Bible.
I misquoted there. It's the Gospel of Barnabas.
Then why was he trying to defend it during his live stream by putting up this image on his screen in defense of that initial claim?
Yeah, that's weird. Why is he? Because it wasn't the Sinai Bible, it's the Gospel of Barnabas. So even in his response, though, he's still talking about.
And I want to call something to what he has on the screen there. Mark 16, 9 through 20. And this is, I guess it's about the Sinai Bible and what's there. If I'm reading this correctly, and I may not be, it says the longer ending of Mark detailing post-resurrection appearances of Jesus. Okay, never mind.
About the Sinai Bible. The Codex Sinaiticus includes books like the Epistle of Barnabas. Okay, is the I don't look these here. Where's my internet here? I want to look something. Up here.
All right, finish looking something up.
Let's get this up here.
What do you want to look up, Morg?
Where is?
I mean, when I get lost on
Just
slang, I
one.
usually go to
I
Urban
wanna look something up.
Dictionary.
So the gospel, let's see, the epistle of Barnabas.
All right, don't let there be dead air time,
The
Morg.
epistle
You
of
know better.
Barnabas is an early Christian Greek epistle written between AD 70 and AD 135 in the Codex Sinaiticus. But I don't think that's the same thing as the gospel of Barnabas. Let me see. That's my suspicion. I don't think they're the same thing. Let me see. They're different things. The gospel of Barnabas is, where was it written? Is dated to the 13th to the 15th century. See, this is the problem with Billy Carson. And look, this isn't something I've done a lot of research in. I'm looking this up right now. But look, Billy's talking about, first he talks about the Sinai Bible or Codex Sinaiticus. And Wes goes, wait a minute, that has nothing to do with the Sinai Bible. Are you actually talking about the Gospel of Barnabas? Something like that, more or less. And he goes, oh yeah, no, or he said that later. I don't think Wes mentioned that. I think Billy said, no, I'm sorry, I was talking about the Gospel of Barnabas. And so, okay, it wasn't in the Codex Sinaiticus. It's in the Gospel of Barnabas. And then Wes goes, well, the Gospel of Barnabas is a forgery. Now, in his response, he's talking about the Sinai Bible again, Codex Sinaiticus, I think in terms of the Gospel of Barnabas, but here's where I think went wrong, because it says that in Codex Sinaiticus, there's the Epistle of Barnabas, but the Epistle of Barnabas is not the Gospel of Barnabas. So what I think Billy has done is confused the Epistle of Barnabas with the Gospel of Barnabas. And keep in mind, this is just, I'm literally researching this right now on the fly. But so look, I could have some errors here. I don't think so though. But this shows you how easy this kind of stuff is to fact check. Now, if I were going to make a video about this, right, and be like, oh no.
Yes, but it's more effective if you can literally pull the text he's trying to reference off the shelf and show him that he's wrong, which is what happened here.
Oh, I absolutely know this with certainty, or to a high degree of accuracy. I would do, probably a couple weeks of research at least. This is just me doing it in 30 seconds. But me doing it in 30 seconds, I know that Wes is an intellectually intelligent individual who has a lot of historical information. He's saying that the Gospel of Barnabas and Codex Sinaiticus are very different things. Billy is trying to equate them, but it's because anyway, this is the issue. Billy is either not doing the research he needs to do, or he's intentionally trying to mislead people, because this is easy to look up. Easy to look up. Anyway, it's almost unfortunate, because I want him to be legit. Not that because he has influence. It would be nice for someone who had influence to be wanting to really help people.
Morg, perhaps you should look up something of Billy Carson's history. The name he was born with was William Tyrone Carlson, and you might want to look up his criminal record under that name.
Will reach a higher state of consciousness, right? It's like, but this is just stuff like this. You can't do that, man.
Looking at this, I'm glad to see that he's done more homework, but the only problem is none of the points on the sheet change the fact that Codex Sinaiticus includes Jesus' crucifixion in nearly every New Testament book. Even his point about the shorter ending of Mark doesn't help, since Mark still includes the crucifixion. So none of this refutes or really even addresses a single fact that Wes gave. But even more wild was the evidence that he gave in support of his claim that Jesus had a wife. In order to argue for the legitimacy of this known forgery that allegedly claims that Jesus had a wife, Billy used this clip right here as evidence.
What really matters is the kind of scientific testing that's been done and that kind of work.
So this scrap is tiny.
It goes on to talk about how much scientific testing has been done. She really believes, and she's gone on dozens of interviews about this, that this thing was real. Now,
but this video that
All right, well, let's take a little bit of time out here to remind everyone to like, comment, and subscribe, and honestly, I'm not sure how much longer I'll go on tonight.
he's using is this one right here, and it was made back in 2014 before the fragment was universally acknowledged as a forgery. And even worse, the lady in the clip, Karen King, who popularized the fragment, she even admitted that it was likely a forgery 2 years after the clip study showed, once she found out that the text was copied from the internet. She even said that the guy who gave her the fragment obviously lied. But to his credit, Billy does seem to acknowledge this fact to some degree, but then says that maybe she crumbled due to a Christian conspiracy, which he doesn't have the slightest bit of evidence for, nor does it explain why non-Christian scholars who studied it, like Mark Goodacre, came to the same conclusion while providing piles of evidence in support of that conclusion. And once again, the sheet that Billy put up on the screen literally does nothing to support his claim or refute anything that Wes stated during the debate. And yet Billy even went so far as to say,
I always tell you guys in all the podcasts that I'm in, don't believe what I say, research what I say. Everyone's in
Oh God, yes, please research what he says. Please don't believe.
Please don't believe anything just because someone says it. If I tell you that they've discovered that P does not equal NP, but refuse to give a source, go Google that right away, because that would be big news, because it's the most important unsolved problem in computer science.
See what he says. Please research what he says. Please do. Please take his advice here. This is the best advice I've seen him give. Please do that. Please.
How to gain or find their own opinion.
But the last time that happened, he claimed that he was ambushed and threatened to sue everyone. The Bible says that the one who states his case first seems right until the other comes and examines him. And as soon as anyone genuinely takes the time to examine Billy's claims about Christianity, then it all comes crashing down for him. And to make everything worse, he didn't have hardly any sources on any of the sheets for people to verify. And when one of his fans asked him to provide a source, he responded with insults.
You can tell this was written for me. No, I'm taking this from the source.
Someone says, I still love Billy, but Billy is not about the facts and something. But the problem is that he claims to be about the fact.
Unfortunately, asking for sources has also become seen as a left-wing signifier, because typically people who ask for sources are more educated.
It's not like he's saying, oh, these are...
And unfortunately, just because education is under attack in this country, left-wing people are more likely to be more educated than people who are conservative, but this is not universally true. Do not take this as a universal truism.
They're just stories. He's saying these are factual events. Like I said, when I talk about the Gospel of Philip, where it talks about Jesus kissing Mary, which is an old, ancient text. It's an ancient text. But I'm not saying that those things actually happened.
And I think what he's referencing is a Gnostic gospel, but I'm not entirely sure. And the Gnostics did not insist that the stories of Jesus Christ had to be literal.
Because there's so much allegory in the Gospel of Philip. There's so much allegory in the Bible. Guys, look at what's in the Bible. There's talking snakes. There's talking donkeys. It's like Shrek, for fuck's sake. These things didn't happen.
Listen, Morg, I've read the part of the Bible where the story of Balaam and his talking donkey occurs. Now, I don't think that's an allegory. It occurs after a really long section of Jewish laws. And I think the writers got bored and just put that story in there to see if people were still paying attention. Now, I am attributing my own motives here, and hopefully that's not the reason why that story is in there in the first place. But that's what I think. I don't think there's anything we can learn from the story of Balaam and his donkey, because it's not really a nice story.
They represent archetypes within the psyche. Might as well be watching a debate about Shrek and Donkey and who was the true Messiah. Is Shrek the true Messiah? Like, it's just stuff didn't happen, guys.
Mr. Whoever you are in the live chat, of course this is cut and pasted from the direct source, from actual academic
Lord Farquaad died for our sins.
books. I'm not giving you this off my dome. I'm reading academic books. Come on now, tune in. Get your head on right.
You're reading academic books? What are those academic books?
This is not basic IQ stuff.
But conveniently, he didn't give the
Basic IQ stuff? What's basic IQ stuff?
names of those academic books, so he still didn't provide any sources. And it's at this point that we can start to see Billy unravel more and more, which leads to his diatribes against God, the Bible, and Christianity. And it's here we start to see the real Billy Carson. So as the live stream went on, Billy began to show more and more hostility towards Christians. He started by calling the God of the Bible a sadistic narcissist.
What is it?
Well, that's absolutely true. The God of the Bible is absolutely a sadistic narcissist.
I'm not really going to comment on whether or not the God of the Bible is a genocidal maniac or anything like that. You can make the argument that the God of Christianity cannot be the God of the Bible because the God of the Bible does not have the God of Christianity's traits. But you could also argue that the people who wrote the Bible just didn't get things right and misunderstood the nature of God.
No question about it. You don't need any, historian to give you anything. You can read it and be like, holy shit, this guy destroyed all of humanity in a flood, unalived all the firstborn children in Egypt, accepted a burnt virgin sacrifice, allowed for SA of women in conquered cities. Horrible character. So Billy's 100% on the money about that.
And don't forget, Lot is called a righteous man, even though he offered his daughters up for SA to an angry mob. And of course, his daughters later in the same story return the favor and commit incest.
Just all where he gets his facts that are very bad, not good.
He's a sadistic narcissist. Let's take a look at some of the traits and see if we can compare.
Yeah, so going back to our Shrek analogy, right? Who's the bad guy in Shrek? The little short guy. Farquaad, right? You can look at Shrek and go, hey, Farquaad is a psychopathic asshole. I should do a whole video about Shrek in the Bible. That'd be a funny video. But you can look at Shrek and go, hey, Farquaad was a sadistic asshole. You don't have to have like verified evidence of Shrek and Donkey. Like, it doesn't matter. In the context of the story, you can look at the actions of Farquaad and be like, this is an asshole. You don't, because you're working within the, now that doesn't mean that Farquaad really exists or that any of that happened, but in the context of the story. And now if you had lots of, let's say now you have lots of Shrek religions, let's start. And they praise and worship Farquaad as being, oh, this is our savior. And they start doing crusades and killing everyone who doesn't believe in Farquaad. You'd be like, hey, you know, the guy that you believe in is a dick. And they'd be like, no, he's holy. He tells us he's holy. He says how great he is in the Shrek story. I don't know. It's just, the God of the Bible is clearly a psychopathic narcissist. And you don't need to have anything.
Hey, Morg, let's not start throwing the narcissism word around. I think that word gets overused on the internet. It may apply, but I don't think it applies to many people who it gets applied to. And it's been even worse that there is a political figure that many people, including psychologists, believe is probably a malignant narcissist that has captured a lot of national attention.
Other than the context, you don't need anything other than the stories themselves to realize that.
Compare them to this quote unquote God of the Bible. If your God of the Bible is so powerful, why does he need to kill everybody and have all these wars? You're all knowing, all powerful, all omnipotent, yet you can't stop one brother from killing the other one till this very day.
Next, he turned his attention to biblical figures like Abraham, mocking his faith and his character.
Well, one of the things people don't seem to realize is that when those stories were written, the omni-properties of God were not attributed to the God of the Bible.
Now, the fact that this...
Well, yeah. I mean, Abraham, God said, hey, go kill your kid. And Abraham was like, okay, that's not cool. Now, God stopped him at the end. But the moral of the story is do whatever God tells you, even if it means unaliving your own kid.
Or if you ask rabbis, they'll say the story is about critical thinking because, and this isn't necessarily any better, God was testing Abraham to see how far he would go. And Abraham failed that test.
God didn't give him a reason to. God didn't say, oh, do this be, God wasn't like, oh, your kid's going to grow up to be, a killer and a tyrant, so you got to do this, too bad. No, God was just like, just do it. Why? I told you to. That's a horrible story. And to base your religion around that story as being the epitome of the faith that one should have in God is gross.
All right, for the most part here, I think I largely agree with what Morg is saying about Billy Carson and what he did here, which is not going to make for a lot of snarkiness on my part, which is where a lot of the entertainment value for this, I think, is supposed to come. Now, usually when I encounter Morg, he's just out there somewhere in a universe that I don't really inhabit because I'm off in some other parallel universe. That universe is typically called reality. In this case, I think Morg decided to visit the rest of us, and there's not much more to say here. So, with that being said, I would like to thank everyone for joining me this evening. Where I am, it's a snowy Friday night. The roads aren't very clear. Hopefully, I will see you all next week for another Faulty Logic Friday. And if I have time, I will put out a video about basically algebraic problem solving that I need to get to before I do another computer science tutorial. All right. Have a good night, everyone, and go out and write some code.